light of 2024's Echoes of Wisdom, Nintendo's future for the next true 3D sequel to Tears of the Kingdom is quite open, compared to the clear next direction 2017's Breath of the Wild had. I can only imagine the effort that went into making the Wild's map of Hyrule, so I honestly feel that Tears of the Kingdom using the same map was a logical decision for the developers. However, from the discourse I've seen online, most people felt that Tears of the Kingdom either didn't have to exist or should have been the complete picture for Breath of the Wild. Continuity was broken in more than one way with Tears of the Kingdom, and with no DLC, it is clear from Nintendo that their next big outing will be in a new direction. Seeing how difficult it was for them to properly follow through with a direct sequel, I believe that this is their best move. By the way, my name's Joe. How's it going? I make vids about monkeys and stuff, but I also love Zelda and Halo, hence, this video. If you like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out some of my other vids. By the way, yes, I really did do this whole setup just for this little 2-second bit right here. Why did I put in this much effort? The heck was I thinking? Oh, I know. I care about The Legend of Zelda, of course. Nintendo won't go back to the Zelda games of old, but they need to focus. Evolution of the gameplay will come thanks to more power on whichever future console we'll have. And so in this video, I'm going to break down the elements that make a Zelda game, and also go over the best parts of older Zelda games and new ones. And hopefully what Nintendo can do for the future, which in my opinion would be blending these two elements together, and make what could be the best Zelda game yet. Smaller but more maps would be best. That or segmenting the whole map, closing off certain areas until gaining an ability or item nearby. Now, which map is the question? It could have the Smash Ultimate philosophy where you just do all of them. Hyrule, Lorule, Dark Dimension, Land of Twilight, Sky Islands, Termina, and Wind Waker's Ocean Islands. In order to do all of them, there may have to be a time rift, the time rift that was done before by Hyrule Warriors, but Nintendo could do their spin on it and do a much more fleshed out version of it, such as including the best pieces of Ocarina of Time's Hyrule and Wind Waker's Flood, Twilight Princess's Hyrule, and Skyloft Above. Then again, there is the option to just do something completely new. As much as I love Kokiri Forest, Kakariko Village, Death Mountain, and Zora's Domain, we could do something similar to a Super Mario Wonder, and have Link or whoever explore a new kingdom, in the same vein as Termina, but much grander. If Nintendo decides to take this direction, I could see them utilizing the same game graphics as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to save development time. I would prefer Twilight Princess's graphical style, but I know I'm in the minority. Either way, the map that is chosen will at the very least not be the same Hyrule a third time. Characters are an important staple to The Legend of Zelda, and inspired by Echoes of Wisdom, you gotta craft unique characters within each race, which means bringing back all the old familiars. Hylians, Gerudos, Gorons, Zoras, Ritos, Koroks, but also Deku Scrubs, the Minish, River Zora, and I feel like in the spirit of the River and Ocean Zora, have Owls be a separate race of Ritos. Each race should have at least 2 cities or towns like Hyrule Market and Kakariko. Rito and Zora can have one for each species, but also the enemy types could have more than just camps. They could be enemies in the wild, but add depth with something like secret rescue missions into a city where you don't fight them because there are too many, you just have to break out your allies. Signature characters could be tropes like Goron's own Darunia, or subverted tropes like Breath of the Wild's Yubono, or something more subtle like Majora's Mask. The main thing missing in the modern, bad writing of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is maturity. It has obvious baby writing, and we should just go back to it being good again.
That princess was my own daughter, my dear Zelda. And the courageous knight who protected her right up to the very end. That knight was none other than you, Link. You fought valiantly when your fate took an unfortunate turn.
Huh?
And then, you were taken to the Shrine of Resurrection Here you now stand, revitalized 100
I
years
just want you
later.
to stop saying odd shit, like you smell a psychosphere or you're in someone's faded memory of a town. Just stop.
The best storytelling in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was environmental, and even then, I felt like Ocarina of Time did it better. I am one of the many that finds the rough modern writing super disparaging. If I'd known Tears of the Kingdom was going to be as bad or worse at storytelling than its antecedent, I still would have bought it, but not right away. Oh, and also bring back the Monkes! Monke, 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 Monke. They should bring back items, but like abilities. From Sage abilities to Sheikah Slates and Zonai abilities, imagine all of these coming back, but as items. Similar to Halo 3's equipment coming back in Halo Infinite, but as a permanent feature to Master Chief's suit in the campaign. I'm not sure just how game-breaking that would be, or how tough on the console's engine that would be, but most likely, there would have to be cutbacks on the freedom each item could reach. But really, that's not a bad thing. If you could have something like Ultra Hand exist as a physical item you equipped in the item menu, put to your X, Y, or Z, that would be cool. Speaking of menus, there never needed to be an in-game reason for it existing. Like for Link to see the map and keep track of items on the slate is fine. But it's not like that explained how you can carry 30 swords simultaneously anyway, so since I'm already suspending my disbelief, it can just go all the way to not having a reason to exist. Also, the aesthetics should not be tech. Bring back the ancient stone slab and coffee-stained papers. Why was magic replaced with technology? I miss the vibe of the 80s medieval fantasy from the older games, and it would be a welcomed vibe back. The now Japanese influence of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Especially in Kakariko Village. There could also be Amazonian vibes like the one hinted at with Breath of the Wild and the Zonais, but properly fleshed out, thinking of the Dekus in Majora's Mask. Also imagine Viking Hyruleans in the mountains, and other historical influences. As far as the story goes, bring back the intimate, scary nature that existed in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker. Yeah, you heard me right. Also note I didn't bring up Twilight Princess. I love the game, but when it came for the scary scenes, like the Twilight origin story, I don't know why, it's just for me, I feel like it didn't really hit. Meanwhile, in Wind Waker of all games, you got Ganondorf kidnapping your little sister. Another point I want to give to the first 3 3D games is a sense of great change. In Ocarina of Time, you meet people and help towns, only to come back 7 years later and find everything different. Those people now dead or invariably changed. In Majora's Mask, you find people in places cursed or in dire need of your help, only to then have you go back in time and for those people not to remember you. And in Wind Waker, with that great reveal of the land under the water, there's no going back for Link after that. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom didn't have that at all. Twilight Princess had many things happen, and you as Link helped the people, but you always felt like a tourist in the land of Hyrule. You never really felt connected to anyone other than your neighbors, now in Kakariko Village, and Midna herself. In Tears of the Kingdom, there's a reveal, spoilers, that the Light Dragon, which did not exist in Breath of the Wild, was Zelda. That could have been a good reveal if cutscenes were linear and you felt the story progress with the cutscenes, but it didn't, and I felt nothing much about it. Thinking they may have been hiding a bigger stinger at the end of the game when it was revealed you can't change her back, for real. So there were no stakes or sacrifices. In Ocarina of Time, the whole childhood was a temporary soothing lie, and that was just the beginning. It turned out you were not a Kokiri but a Hylian brought to the Great Deku Tree by your dying mother to save your life, only for the Deku Tree to die from a blight brought on by Ganondorf. Now those are stakes. For the next Zelda game, regarding the actual start-to-finish story, let me make one up right here, right now, but with it be heavily inspired by previous games, so make sure to note the influences yourself. A new generation of Link and Zelda are neighbors in a peaceful town on the outskirts of Hyrule, on the tree line of the Lost Woods. Your town, Platus Town, is an open environment but small, with cliff edges similar to older games, and they are just a little too slippery to climb. Your town does not have a relationship with the Deku Tree, but knows about him and holds a reverence for the fearful but awestruck lost woods that the Great Deku Tree watches over. Once you perform any 3 of the main tasks in town, Zelda is summoned to Castle Town. She doesn't want to go, and you want to tag along with her but are not allowed by your mother and father. You can then finish all of the side quests in your town before the final quest. You sneak onto a carriage passing through, and it follows Zelda's carriage into Castle Town. With Death Mountain and the Temple of Time as skybox art beyond the walls, you traverse Castle Town in a semi-open environment, until finding an underground passage. Similar to your starting village, you can perform all side quests here, or just skip right to finding the passage, where you then sneak into the castle, performing rudimentary puzzles to unlock passageways, finally making it to a window and watch as Zelda enters the throne room. She is told that she has royal blood and houses the Triforce of Wisdom within her. As the news is told, one of the guards, Ashika, this time a separate Sheik character, notices you, locking eyes for a split second, and you hide, but she just smirks. Just then, the castle's laid under siege by monsters. A great gloom tendril bursts from the doors, and you see Zelda get taken away by monsters, with the source of the gloom turning out to be this generation's Gerudo male, the next Ganondorf, Jotunheim. He holds the Triforce of Power and takes Zelda to control her piece of the Triforce. You escape to return home. You get into a carriage heading out as buildings burn, only to return to your village on fire as well. The monsters tore a path of fire through the Lost Woods, desecrating the sacred woods. They started looking for Zelda there at your village before Castletown. Your parents, along with almost everyone else in town, was tragically killed by the monsters. The mayor is one of the few that remain and tell you what happened before equipping you with a sword and pointing the way they went, before then perishing himself. The monsters came from the neighboring kingdom to the north, Caledonius. You must follow the scorched path through the Lost Woods before entering the open world of this new kingdom. From a gameplay perspective, these 2 locations, your village and Castletown, are open areas but closed off after these segments. Then the rest of the game is an open world in this new kingdom. Once you play the game once, all future playthroughs can skip the intro locations, or you can still play them. Caledonius' map will be similar to the wilds in Hyrule in having most biomes: valleys, meadows, hills, mountains, plains, riverlands, woods, ocean shores, volcanic lands, frozen lands, marshes, and more. In saying all that though, scale-wise, I feel like it doesn't have to be bigger. Nintendo should instead focus on making the locations more dense with things to do, and work on better graphics. Once in this new land, Sheik from earlier appears to tell you that she will recover Zelda and you need not put yourself in more danger, but you insist with a silent look of determination. Sheik relents, offering to help you should you get stuck, but will otherwise be on her own journey. Now, the Sheik character will occupy the partial map discovery, monsters and character guide, and help portion of this game. Essentially a Navi character, but less attached to the hip with you. Now, in open discovery, the game will have you meet the Gorons, Zoras, Dekus, and other races that occupy it in whichever order you see fit. You will help aid each town and peoples of afflictions, and they will whisper words of the Chosen One come to free their lands of the King of Monsters, before you try and rescue Zelda from the Monster City. Progression will be limited in that you need items from, let's say, 4 of these towns in order to even begin sneaking into the Monster City. There will be underground passages with areas blocked that you can only traverse with said items. Once you've made it inside, you will fail and almost die against Jotunheim, but be rescued by the friends you made along the way. They will direct you back toward the Lost Woods, where the legendary Master Sword awaits its true holder, the one that will banish evil. This will also be something that is locked before you attempt and fail at rescuing Zelda. Now, you will be guided by the voice of the Great Deku Tree. Once you acquire the Master Sword, you will learn of this land's sages and their ability to aid you in purifying the land of evil. The map will now be fully unlocked, with previous temple entrances crumbling away, allowing you to either ignore the sages and go back to face Jotunheim, or you can go through each dungeon and awaken the spirit of each sage who will then aid you in confronting the King of Monsters. Now let's get forward to the final boss. Once beating him down a level, it is revealed that he is corrupted by the power within him. Knowing this, you fight not to kill, but to purge the force of power from the young man. Zelda aids you in doing so, and it works, only for the force of power to take a loose form of its own. You, Zelda, Sheik, and the now freed of corruption Jotunheim chase the form as it flees to find a new host. It corrupts a horse that you then have to purge, then a Goron, until finally, going south, it latches onto the Deku Tree itself. The game will end with you entering the Deku Tree in the spirit of how Ocarina of Time started, finishing the force off, plunging the Blade of Evil's Bane into the roots of the tree, tragically killing the great Deku Tree in the process, but imprisoning the force of power in the blade, making the force of wisdom and courage fade from your hand and Zelda's, as the balance of the Triforce lifts in peace for another generation. There can then be a post-game world to explore if the developers felt courageous enough. The Monster City would still be a Monster City, but side quests about random errands would still need doing, only now Jotunheim and Zelda would reside in one of the towns. You could even be able to pass through the Lost Woods and revisit the ruins of your town, where there could be a side quest to rebuild it, like Tarrytown. Let me know what you guys think of this concept. Does it blend the new and old Zelda games in a satisfying manner? What would you guys do differently? Let me know down below. Thank you for listening my take on what a future Zelda game could be. I appreciate your time, hope you all sleep well, fellow Hylians, and until next time, ciao for now. Peace!